Christmas makers. This is another one of my projects from way back. This project I actually made using Idea-ology in December of 2017. So 5 years ago, I made this and I made a little notation because I knew I wouldn't remember all the parts and all the things that are in it, and I probably still won't. But I do have a detailed blog post that I made when I did this back in 2017. And so I'm going to link that in the description for this video walkthrough of this project. But I just thought it would be kind of fun this December to just go back and talk about some of the projects that I enjoyed making back when I wasn't doing video tutorials, and just kind of walk through them, because I don't know what you have in your stash, and I don't know what things might, inspire something with things that you have, and even the things that are still available now. So I thought it would just be fun to do a few walkthroughs of some of my older projects. And this is probably my oldest one so far. So let's go ahead and get started with it. This one actually is a project that I made that is very personal to me. So I hope that you will take the time to go to my blog post and read through some of my memories that I will try and share some of here that I included in this make. So this was inspired from my childhood, actually. I lived in the Central Valley of California, and I was raised in a Quaker church, and another name for Quaker churches here in California are Friends churches. And so I went to the Friends church where I grew up, and there was a couple in our church who had a Christmas tree farm. And it was called Friendly Pines Christmas Tree Farm because, of course, they were Quakers in the Friends Church. So thus Friendly Pines. And so I worked there, and my dad worked there, and sometimes my mom worked there. And then I will get to my sister in a minute as well. But there were just some things about the Idea-ology release for this in 2017 that kind of got me started thinking about this project. And so I'll go ahead and just kind of talk through it. First, it does have some tiny lights. This is a vignette tray. I covered it with bits of paper from the paper pack from 2017. So they had this great plaid. They had some green stripes and green dots and snowflakes in the back. There was this red and white twine that was released. And so I just kind of wound it around the lights, because at the Christmas tree farm at night, they had lights that went across and lit up so that people could see when they were looking for trees. There were these very fun red alpha dice that were released that year. And so I used them to spell out Christmas across the top. And then tree is actually stamped on the wood slices. And back then, the wood slices were all different sizes, and some of them were kind of imperfect, which I absolutely love. This is just one of my favorites that has this little bit hanging off here, because my dad, when I was growing up, would slice burl wood back in the 70s and 80s. It was a big thing to make clocks and sconces and tables and things out of burl wood. And he was very good at slicing the wood and keeping it really even, so that the people that made the clocks and made the tables didn't have to do a lot of sanding when they got it. They had to do minimal sanding, but nothing like from a lot of people that would really kind of mess up the cut. He was very, very good at it. So this just kind of reminded me of that. And because he was so good with a chainsaw, he was also one of the people that cut the trees down for folks as they came and they picked their tree out. So it was one of those types of Christmas tree farms where they would grow the fresh pines, and then you would go in and you would pick one that you wanted, and you could either cut it down with a handsaw, or my dad always had his little chainsaw there, and people would always seek him out to cut their tree down. And then you would leave the bottom layer of the Christmas tree, and what they would do is they would tie those up and actually a new tree would grow much faster than if they had to plant them every year. So that's kind of how that all worked. Now, this paper doll I picked to represent my dad, who would cut the trees down. Then he would always stand there until they paid for the tree and came back with the receipt, and then he would help them load it in their car. My job was a parking lot greeter, and so I would stand, and as the families would come in, so these kind of represent the families and the kids that were always running around doing things. And I would always stand at the entrance, and whenever a car would come in, I would sit. They had like a little box kind of thing that I would sit on. And then when the car would come in, I would stand up and I'd say, "Hello, welcome to Friendly Pines Christmas Tree Farm. You can park in this parking lot or the one down further. Have a Merry Christmas." And then I would hand them the paper. So that was my job, and I had to say that probably a million times. "Hello, welcome to Friendly Pines Christmas Tree Farm. You can park in this parking lot or the one further down." All day long. That was my job. So, but I did that every year, and I totally looked forward to it, and I just loved the way the Christmas trees smelled, that fresh pine smell, and my dad would come home, we would drive home, and he would smell like those fresh Christmas trees. So I used the red alpha dice. And then for the part that says tree, I used the wood slices and colored them with distress ink. And then I hung them from the top, as you can see here. I used some of the Vignette hardware, and we used to have eye hooks, and then the little screw eye hooks also. And so I put them in each of the wood slices, and then I hung them from the ones at the top, just like that. And on the ones on the end, I put some, these are the Tim Holtz pine branch punch from Sizzix from a long time ago when he used to have punches. And so I punched out some little bits of pine and spruce, I think, from those. And then these dies are, this one was called Evergreen, and I know that there's a lot of trees that can be used now. And then this fun one was Tree Line. I don't know if that's still available or not. But anyway, both of them, lots of fun, and I cut them and put them, layered them throughout so that it looked like there were trees all over the place, like at Friendly Pines. And then I needed something that would say Christmas Tree Farm, and so I used the typeset letters and attached those to the front here. Lots of wood slices throughout, and also you might notice that I have some little pine cones, and those little pine cones are actually the beaded berries, which have always been one of my most favorite things from the earlier releases of Idea-ology. And we haven't had them for a couple of years. I have a huge stash of them because they're my favorites. But you could just color them with alcohol ink and make them into little pine cones if you wanted. So that's what I did here. Now, my dad, as I said, my dad worked at the tree farm, and I worked as a greeter at the tree farm. And the side of the building where you would go pay had all kinds of posters and information and things like that all along the side of it. And so I used some of the ephemera, and I put it on this. This was one of the Christmas baseboards for 2017. I went ahead and just kind of put them on there as if that was the side of the building where everyone would go pay. And then there's this little vignette box top from 2017. And you can see there's a little girl in there. She has bows in her hair and her little scarf. She's got a wreath in the back. And then I used some Sizzix. I don't remember the names of these even, but this was a set that had some kind of decorative garland and some things like that. It might have been one of those long, like sizzlet strips or whatever, but it was a Tim Holtz. I think it like a Christmas greenery, one of those 2x12 or 2x10 strips. So anyway, I decorated this up, and then I used some ephemera and some wood grain paper, little tiny fasteners on there to put Christmas trees over this. I think this was an icicles think it said icicles on this one. Let's see. Yes, brilliant icicles. And this is supposed to represent my sister because she was 4 years younger than me. And so what would happen during the week is that my dad had a yard and tree care business along with cutting the slabs of wood, and he would go around town and trim trees for people. And a lot of times there would be people that had mistletoe in their trees. And as you know, mistletoe is not a good thing to have in trees because it will kill them if you leave it in there. And so he would offer in December to go around and take mistletoe out of people's trees for them. And then he would bring it home and we would sit and put it in bunches with my mom and my sister and tie little ribbons around them. And we would end up with a big box of mistletoe with ribbon tied around them. And then on Saturdays and Sunday afternoons, when the tree farm was open on the weekends, my mom would tie ribbons in my sister's hair. She'd make big ponytails and tie ribbons in her hair that were the same color as the ones on the mistletoe. And then my dad made her a little stand out of a refrigerator box that he got at the hardware store downtown. And they put a little seat in there for her, and he even made like a little shelf that came out. So when he cut the window out, he just folded it down to make a shelf. And then she would set her mistletoe on there, and then they put a sign that said Missy's Mistletoe. And people would come spend 25 cents to get a little thing of mistletoe, but they would usually just give her $1 and take 4 of them. And she just made a killing selling this mistletoe and sitting in her little box looking all cute. And then I was over greeting everybody all day long, and I didn't make anywhere near as much as my sister did on the weekends with her mistletoe stand. So this represents my sister's mistletoe stand. And I think that's pretty much it for all of the details on this. And I just attach these with those eye hooks also and just, stretch them across there. And yeah, I think that's it. And to hold these together, I use some of the design tape. I put design tape around the edge here. And you will probably notice, however, let me point this out. You will notice that there is not a stitch of snow on this, not a flake of snow on this project. And that's because this Christmas tree farm was in Central California, where I grew up, and we did not have a single snowstorm, sprinkling of snow, whatever you call it, at all the entire time I was growing up and working at the Christmas tree farm. I think the only snow I even remember was when I was in kindergarten and it snowed and it was all melted by recess. So it was always very, very green at Friendly Pines Christmas Tree Farm. And so that's why I didn't put any snow on any of this, because it wasn't snowy. It was just very green and lush. So that's why this is very green and lush. And I think this really represents my childhood memories of Christmas and Friendly Pines Christmas Tree Farm very well. And that's why I have kept it around since 2017, just because it's such great memories and it's extra special this year. So thank you for walking through this memory make for me. And as I said before, if you would like to know any more details about it, I will put a link to my original blog post in the description for this video. So thank you so much for following along and taking a little walk down memory lane with me. I hope that you have a very merry day and a very creative one as well.